Okay, thank you, Leah. I call this meeting to order of the City Council for the City of Grosse Pointe Park. Clerk Blayhead, please call the roll.
Councilmember Rayland,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
McConnell,
Here.
Hodges,
Here.
Robson,
Here.
Fluid,
Here.
and Mayor Denner.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Councilmember Reed, support.
Support.
It was a tie. Pick council members McConnell or Fluid. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rayland,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner. Mayor Denner?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is approval of the regular agenda. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
I think that was Councilmember McConnell. Support?
Support.
Okay. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rayland,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner.
Yes. Motion passes. We have an agenda. The next item is public comment on agenda items. I'd ask the public to limit their comments to those things on the regular agenda. And I'll ask the administration to manage this process. City Manager Seisland.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Denner. So I do have one written public comment. I'm going to read this in two parts. Part of this is for the agenda items, and then I'll be reading at the end the other portion of this gentleman's comment. This comes from Mr. Greg Donnelly. Item 10.1 regarding zoning appeals for specific residential properties. Why are some projects required to go through this process, but others are not? It seems like a very inconsistent interpretation of policy that the city administration could better administer. Specifically, was there ever such a hearing for the proposed art center? Item 10.2 regarding OMA and the special meetings of council over the last 2 weeks. I urge you all to use this moment to exercise courageous leadership. Was one of your peers responsible to leaking misinformation that caused great damage and embarrassment to normal city processes? If so, I would hope to see this person held responsible for such actions. Mayor Denner, those are my written public comments, and I'll ask Leah if there's any comments in the queue for spoken.
Thank you, City Manager Seisland. I do have 2 members of the public in the queue for public comment, so I am going to share my screen. And then Richard, you are first. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Yes, Miss Leah, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Richard Schroeder, Lake Point, Grosse Pointe Park. And I'd like to comment on the Open Meetings Act I think you're going to be talking about. It appears to me that you've got 2 choices. According to what I understand, either the public has been misinformed and we were passing on lies, and the other option is that somebody on the city council is lying and we weren't misinformed. either way, it's going to be a hard decision for you guys to make who was lying. If we were lying, I doubt there's any reason why we have to have any investigation at all, because I don't think it's against the law to be lying about anything. I think that's been held up by the Supreme Court. And the other option is that we weren't lying and some members of the city council were lying, and this is exactly what happened. So I'd like you guys to decide which one it is. Is the public misinformed and we lying? Or were the members of the city council lying and we knew exactly what happened? Pick one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leah, next public comment.
Ron, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ron Porter, and I live on Pemberton Road in Grosse Pointe Park. And I'd like to talk about the incident in the last few weeks involving the disclosure of confidential information from the performance evaluation of Mr. Seisland. It appears, from what I can tell, that someone leaked information from that meeting, embellished it with some false information, but nonetheless leaked information that should not have become public, and did so in order to generate hostility to 4 members of the council, generating a lot of media coverage of this supposed decision, generating a lot of hostility, calls for a recall, sadly, some racially motivated comments, I believe, directed at Councilmember McConnell. It's all very shameful and an embarrassment to this community. It needs to be investigated. The people of Grosse Pointe Park need to understand what happened here. If laws were broken, appropriate action needs to be taken, but we can't pretend that nothing happened. And so we need to understand what happened. It's a bit of a locked room murder mystery. There's only 8 people involved here who could have leaked confidential information. I doubt that any of the 4 who were attacked so viciously are responsible for this. So we really just have 4 people, and we need to understand what their role is in having this very blatant political attack on 4 members of council based on confidential information embellished with lies. The people in the park need to understand what happened here. So I would urge the council, and I think it'll be very telling who votes to discover what the facts are here. It'll be very interesting to see. And I think we need to have an investigation and understand which of the 8 are responsible for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leah, next comment.
City Manager Seisland, I have no further comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. This closes public comment on agenda items. We'll now move forward with our regular agenda to the manager's report. City Manager Seisland, would you like to give your report, please?
Yes, thank you. This is going to be a lengthy one, so bear with me, please. So the first thing I'm going to do is discuss tomorrow's meeting with the Planning Commission regarding the visioning session with MKSK. So tomorrow at 7 p.m., I encourage the public to certainly attend this meeting. This will be an important first step of our process for the master plan. And so I'll outline here how this meeting will go tomorrow. A presentation will be made that includes an overview of the planning processes, best practice, existing conditions, market findings, and other ways that you can stay engaged in this process. There will be polling questions asked through Zoom throughout the presentation for participants to provide responses to numerous questions during the presentation. Additionally, the chat function will be enabled for residents to ask questions during the presentation. Questions will then be answered at the end of the presentation before the public comment period begins. During the public comment period, members of the public will have 2 minutes to state their comments, ideas, concerns. Members of the public wishing to make a comment will need to utilize the *9 function on their telephone keypad. Commenters will be called on in the order they raise their hand. MKSK will have a map of the city set up and will be recording those comments and questions as they are stated and will be input to that map. Public participants are also encouraged to write comments, ideas, concerns in the chat box or send them via email to my email at citymanager@grossepointpark.org. And a second public comment period where participants can make a second comment may be allowed, time permitting, depending on the meeting. So that'll be our meeting tomorrow, Planning Commission, and I encourage you all to come. Regarding my manager's report, so I met with administration of the school district last week to hear updates on the application that was submitted to MDOT and the state. A couple of suggestions came down from the state in the application before MDOT determines its award. At this time, we're looking at the schools will know of the award by the latest in April with an expected construction that would start in 2022. The city and its engineer OHM advisors are looking into joining the Kirchhoff Road grant with Safe Routes to Schools that we received for year 2023 so that we have minimal disruption during the school year. The TIFA COVID support, this grant is eligible up to $5,000 for COVID. New items added were payment for online ordering system, tents, heaters, igloos, etc. Businesses that have applied already are still eligible for this grant. The grant will be available until April 16th. We are close to exhausting our second round of grants already. The board as a whole was favorable to a round 3 of grants, which we will need to hold a special meeting for. And members, and I have to thank the members of TIFA volunteered to hand out and distribute flyers of the round 2 program for those businesses, and we'll keep them in touch. The DDA met last week on Tuesday. The board approved and updated its bylaws and expanded its COVID support program with an additional $10,000. To date, we had approved of $3,000 of support, so we now have $17,000 to work with as a board. We're expanding the program at the direction of the DDA to allow for more eligible expenses and are working on those at this time. DT is done working in the city for now due to winter conditions and will be coming back for restoration, finishing main and meter work on Kirchhoff in the spring. So we'll probably look to see them maybe closer to late March, early April when weather permits. Public Works Building, City Administration is awaiting those cost savings results from contractors, architect regarding mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. City Hall, Spicer Group bids were sent out for roof and windows. Currently, right now, Jane and I are starting to work on the budget process and meeting with department heads. Public Safety Director position, the position had been posted, and we have a closing date of February 22nd. To date, we've received 6 applications for this position. Once the position has been closed for submission, EMPCO will conduct an oral board with the candidates and then provide the top candidates for city administration to interview. Dog park. The work order for the dog park has been agreed to by myself and Mr. Joe Backer, and Jake is in review and comment of the agreement between Joe Backer and the city before we proceed with Site A selection. The Recreation Commission reviewed and provided feedback to Chad Craig for dog park rules last week. Chad will look to hold a special meeting of the Recreation Commission for final adoption. And I won't take up stuff about Park and Rec. I'll let Larry do that in her report. And Drinking Water Revolving Fund. The city sent a letter of intent to Eagle of our interest to apply for the Drinking Water Revolving Fund. OHM advisors in the city are compiling areas of work, including lead service line replacement, replacement of certain water mains in need of replacement, upsizing of meters, and providing loops for water. The letter does not commit the city to any of this work yet until a council approval of the potential project. The state is excited to see Grosse Pointe Park apply for this, and the funds can either be provided through a bond or a loan from the state. As more details arise, I'll bring this forth to a public service committee meeting and eventual to city council for consideration and possible approval. Mayor Denner, those are my manager report, and happy for any comments or questions.
Thank you, City Manager. I see a couple of hands. Councilmember Fluid.
Thanks. I only have two questions, I believe. One is regarding the Public Works building. What is the next step on that? I just had an email from a resident today.
So as of right now, we are waiting on results of our cost saving measures. So that's, I forget the term right now. It's not coming to me, but value engineering. Yeah. And so what we're doing is considering, let's take one certain appliance, we'll call it Kohler, for example, where that would, sometimes be more of a cost to have Kohler all over the building. We're looking to see, can we do a design build for certain brands to help save cost on that. So we're waiting that right now. After that, I will be presenting a further budget for City Council to review, as well as the TIFA. After that process has been started or brought forth to you, and then we will be, let me think here, then next process will be, eventual construction, and we will have to also, as a City Council, consider a vacation of the alley that is directly abutting DPW and Weyburn. So that'll be the processes next.
Okay, thanks. And then my only other question was regarding the next round of TIFA and DDA grants, because I was not able to attend the DDA meeting. Are they going to have the same requirements as in terms of, it sounded to me just secondhand that maybe DDA requirements for what was going to be reimbursable might be a little bit more broad. Is that correct? And if so, are you going to expand the requirements as well for the TIFA? Because I feel like the requirements need to be the same in both districts.
So yes, so regarding the DDA, it does allow for more eligible expenses. So we certainly did have a challenge in our last round where only about, so it's 1,500. So we had 2 applications that were submitted to us, and we're looking and seeing, okay, what can we do to expand this program further? So we're digging into there now, listen to the DDA and a couple of businesses in the area of what they really need in help. And so we believe we're going to have a more broader program that will be able to help those businesses and establishments in the area. And wherever we can allow for those same to be done with the TIFA, we will look to do so. But certainly they have a couple different requirements then as of the DDA, which Jake and I have been working on of what will be eligible for both of those entities.
Okay, so you foresee them both having expanded eligibility?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions for the City Manager? Councilmember McConnell?
Good evening. On the master planning process, I know we had talked about different degrees of community engagement. Can you just let us know what you did in terms of raising awareness for that? And then I don't know if you can break it down even further for someone who's never participated or doesn't get what master planning is, but it might be helpful to folks who've never done this and don't really understand it.
Okay, I'll do the best I can. And so regarding awareness, thanks to the help to Leah and a couple planning commission members and others and city council members, we did make a Facebook event that we have been sharing in regards to please attending this event, and we'll continue to do so. We have put out on email and on our city website on the very front regarding the master plan. We also, thanks to a help from a resident, actually one of our planning commission members, Amy Chesterton, assisted us in handing out flyers to those businesses within, the city. We also did have actually boards created, one at the library, one here by City Hall, one by the school, advertising the event, and we'll look to do the same in regards to those. So they're pretty big.
Great.
Awareness wise, I think that's where we got all of those. So I believe we're going to have a pretty strong attendance, and certainly our Zoom allows for 500 people. So I don't know if we'll have 500, but as many as we can get will be pretty awesome. So I really look forward to that. And so In regards to the your question was regarding the master plan process or just the session?
Well, just to help the average Joe who has no idea what master planning, what they're going to be doing there, besides the description you gave, what should they
Okay.
expect to get out of this?
So the best way to describe a master plan would be that this is the outlook for the future of the city for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. What is it that we can look to of our assets right now that we can make a little bit better? Is there something that we're missing right now that we need to add to the community? This goes in everything from our parks to our housing to our business district, how we attract those businesses. Our walkability, do we see 10 years down the road, we're going to see more autonomous vehicles? Do we want to see more walkability using bikes and ride sharing? So it's really a look into the future of where you see our community going and what you would like to see personally. What is it that, let's say you're eventually going to be an empty nester. What is it that you would like to see in the park that maybe you don't have right now or down the road? You want to stay in the community, but you're a little concerned that you may not be able to. Well, please outline in that process you'd like to see more senior housing or opportunities for young college kids and such. So that's probably the best way for me to describe this. Okay.
That was perfect. That was perfect. Thank you. Then the last question I had was on the waterfront infrastructure. You mentioned OHM advisors. So are we doing an RFP or did they win an RFP? How do they fit into this project?
So OHM Advisors is our engineer on record. So they have all of our information regarding our infrastructure, underground, above ground. They work on water, sewer, pump station roads. So they have all of the information in there. How this process would work is if we decide to go out for this, they would RFP certain companies and contractors that would be able to do this work in a competitive bid process to see what would be the best cost for us. And part of that process too, if this goes forward, I really look forward to having a public service commission where we can educate our residents in regards to what your water main looks like right now, what a new water main would look like, the lead service lines as we've seen, and just that public education and buy-in from the community and from you on council for this ever important infrastructure update.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Robson, did you have something?
Yes, for the city manager. Thank you, Mayor. In regards to the search for the new police chief, city manager, is there a deadline for the apps? And if you can share how many have applied so far, if you can share that.
Yes, February 22nd is the end of our deadline, and we've had 6 applications to date and 1 internal candidate.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I think that closes our manager's report. Thank you, City Manager Seisling. We'll now move on to committee and commission reports. We have a few committees and commissions that have met since our last meeting, and I'll run through them more or less in chronological order. First, the Sustainability Committee met, and Councilmember Fluid, do you have a report?
I don't think we did meet, goodness.
Well, I had you on January 13th.
We,
Maybe you didn't.
I think we met before the last council meeting.
yeah, I feel like you scared me there for a second.
I think so.
Okay. For some reason, I had you down as January 13th as having another meeting, so I had the calendar wrong. I apologize, and let's move on.
All right,
I believe the Communications Committee may have met on January 21st.
Yeah.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes, thank you. The committee did meet on January 21st, and we reviewed our primary communication tools with city administration, and I'm just going to highlight them. They are in no particular order. Nixle, which is a alert system that people can sign up with with their phones and email. We're seeking to expand use of Nixle beyond public safety to include DPW and other departments with the goal of communicating advisories as soon as possible such as water issues, water main breaks or discolored water, weather-related advisories, and then of course the public safety advisories, and then other uses as administration sees fit on the Nixle, use of Nixle. One of our more traditional forms of communication is the park communicator. We've had a hiatus with the communicator because of COVID, and so much of our programming has been, especially in the summertime, was it didn't happen, or it was significantly reduced. That particular communication is delivered to every home in the park, and many residents actually hold on to those communicators for programming information and phone numbers, facility rental information. So we are looking to get a communicator out. The turnaround time, according to administration, is relatively short. So I believe we left that, and I guess I'll let the city manager address that if he has an update, but we left that in administration's hands to work on the timeline and solicit content. Next is business communication. The administration, and it may be complete now, but they were completing a list of business contacts. So we have a streamlined ability to communicate with the members of our business district for things like we've discussed COVID and DDA relief, as well as events that we want to host and have buy-in from the business community. Next, social media messaging. We discussed the spacing and scheduling of posts to avoid information overload and to make sure that message, the residents have the opportunity to digest that information from a post before we give them more information. On our website, we are seeking to consolidate some, we discussed a little bit of clunkiness with navigating the website and redundancy of information. So we're looking to consolidate and improve the user experience. I know we, after the meeting, city administration indicated that our per contract upgrade is not until, I believe it's 2024. So we will be exploring what we can do internally to help make the website more user-friendly. The city will also be adding committee meeting Zoom links. Councilmember McConnell proposed a communication survey of residents so we can best determine how residents prefer to receive city news and information. And the last thing, and I won't dwell on it because the city manager already did, please tune in to the master planning visioning session tomorrow night. Visit our website for information on how to join, and please weigh in. And that's the sum of the communications committee meeting.
Thank you. I was going to do a report on the Downtown Development Authority. The city manager actually covered the essence of that meeting, but as a reminder, the DDA did meet on February 2nd, and the two topics were approval of the amended bylaws, which were originally approved by the DDA, then amended by council and went back to the DDA for final approval, which was completed, and then also the expansion of the COVID business assistance program. So that was the DDA. And then going back to Councilmember Reed, Recreation had, I believe, not only a regular meeting, but also Marina Subcommittee, and Councilmember Reed may want to report on those.
Yeah, that's correct. The Marina Subcommittee is a subcommittee to the Recreation Commission. It serves as a liaison between the marina slip renters and city administration. And we actually just posted the mission statement, which is the purpose of the subcommittee is to assess the marina's current status, identify maintenance needs, and recommend improvements. The subcommittee is tasked with identifying short and long-term marina priorities to preserve, enhance, and ensure its physical and financial sustainability. As a committee, this is a newly formed committee. I think we just had our third meeting on January 13th. So some of the short-term plans that we discussed included upgraded surveillance cameras, plans for weed removal in the marina, which is an ongoing battle, child safety latches on gates. Long-term, Chris Delmage, who's the marina supervisor, will be obtaining an engineering analysis that will help shape those plans. Also, Chris advised us that at this time, water levels are predicted to be lower. And then in addition to those items, the subcommittee is also reviewing the marina financials just to determine what funds they have to work with and what type of long-range planning they would have to do for any major marina improvements. That subcommittee will reconvene on March 10th via Zoom. And I invite any marina slip owners, slip renters to join and share their comments. And then the Recreation Commission met on February 3rd last week. Administration provided a rundown of recreation facilities and plans for spring and summer activities. At Windmill Point, administration is looking at resurfacing the tennis courts. Chad Craig, the Parks and Rec supervisor, indicated that we're anticipating a similar pool season to last year with COVID restrictions. So that may also include issues with the swim team. So they're evaluating how that's going to play out. So please stay tuned for what might happen there. The Lavin Center is open with COVID limitations in place, and karate and pickleball will return to the gym on March 1st. Administration is working on rules for the dog park that was discussed at the meeting last week, and Chad will be scheduling a special meeting in March to review them. Also at Patterson Park, administration is considering the possibility of a disc golf course. Dateskate has been canceled due to low interest. However, the city will be sponsoring Chili Fest on Saturday, February 27th. In years past, this Chili Fest has been celebrated at Windmill Point and Patterson Parks. This year it will be moved to the business districts on Kercheval and Charlevoix to help support the businesses. The event will feature carriage rides and contests, and there'll be some pre-event contests to help support the business and generate interest. So please visit the website for the latest on Chili Fest and attend and support the businesses. And that's it for the communication for the Recreation Commission.
Thank you. Is Lieutenant Bostock available? He has taken over as our representative to the NAACP meetings that Chief Poloni had been attending on our behalf, and I wonder if he might have a short report for us if he's available.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 27th of January, we met via Zoom with the NAACP, the Grosse Pointe Harper Woods Leadership Forum. Basically, in this meeting, we discussed having a biannual community event in order to reach a broader audience. So the last 4 or 5 months, we've been meeting with the NAACP leadership itself, and we decided that, through our discussions, everything has been positive up to this point. Communication is good. We're all under the consensus that it should continue, and in doing so, we'd like to reach a broader audience and try to talk more about the perceptions of public safety and our jobs, what we see, what people see when they see us, and just open up a dialogue and come to a better understanding of each other, and to validate and to emphasize our willingness to be part of the community and just be seen as human beings and doing a job. So it was a relatively short meeting, about 40, 45 minutes. We agreed on trying to get this format started, hopefully by May or June. We spoke about how it would be structured. A couple thoughts were having a moderator, having questions be submitted to the forum in order to get proper responses. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks, Lieutenant. It was a good report. Mayor Pro Tem?
Have dates been set for these forums, Lieutenant?
The next forum has not been set. We usually get an email a couple weeks beforehand with the information. But yeah, it'll be sometime in February. Probably near the end of the month.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hodges has been our liaison with the Eastside Community Network, and I believe there may have been a meeting of that body. Councilmember Hodges, would you like to give us a short report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everybody. We've actually met twice, so we're overachieving. For those that might be new to the Eastside Community Network, and in particular the Mack Avenue corridor effort, the purpose of the group is to work collaboratively with the Eastside Community Network in tandem with the cities of Detroit, Grosse Pointe Farms, and Grosse Pointe Park to improve Mack Avenue. As I said, we've met twice since our last council meeting, and these are the highlights. Planning Commission Chair Malik Goodwin and I, who also serves on this committee, had an opportunity to update the group on our master planning process and to direct them to tomorrow evening's event, as well as the interactive map. So that was a positive. And then more directly related to Mack Avenue itself, there is a beautification effort that is going to be launched. There will be monthly meetings that are open to the public, the first of which is February 22nd at 6 p.m. I believe that information is on our website. If not, it will be soon. The Morass Greenway, as well as our Grosse Pointe Board of Realtors will be active in that too. In fact, hats off to our realtors for taking on a leadership role. Also, there's a marketing and branding effort that has been initiated. It's in the early stages, with the goal being to increase interest by businesses that can invest in the district or in the corridor, as well as increasing interest by customers. There's a planning and zoning effort underway with the intent to coordinate zoning along the corridor. It's being led by the city of Grosse Pointe, and we're expecting a draft for review to be online shortly. And then next, there is a streetscape effort. This is unique from the beautification efforts in that it's more capital in its orientation. The effort is underway to find a feasible approach to designing the corridor and implementing the findings over the next few years. The price tag is large, so it is a big lift, but there's a desire to want to leverage grant dollars from both MDOT and SEMCOG. So the intent is to really figure that out so that we're successful in creating that impact. And then lastly, there's the effort to determine how to implement a corridor improvement authority. It is a state-enabled economic development tool that is similar in concept to TIFAs and DDAs, and it would be the next step along the corridor, with the purpose of it being to implement the findings of the 2 phases of planning that have been completed hitherto. The 2 main items under consideration at the moment are the governance model that would oversee it, taking into consideration the unique nature of this and that it's multi-jurisdictional, and then funding opportunities that will work and be valid with the a business improvement district or zone and or a special assessment at the top of the list at the moment. So I will continue to keep you apprised. Obviously, there's a big lift here. There's a lot of work that will need to be done, and it will greatly impact our community. So we'll want to stay on top of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that ends our committee and commission reports. Council, do you agree I didn't miss anyone? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item of business, which is unfinished business. And the first item there is December 21st, 2020 meeting minutes discussion. Councilmember Fluid ask that this be put on our agenda to revisit the December 21st meeting minutes, which were approved as part of the consent agenda in our January meeting, with the objective of including some comments that were made in that meeting by Councilmember Fluid. I'm going to ask City Attorney Howlett to introduce this for us, please.
Yeah, and this was the request to go back and amend what had been approved as part of the consent agenda on the December 21st meeting minutes. What I've been focused on is section 15.269 of the OMA, which talks about meeting minutes and does require that any minutes, any corrections or amendments to the minutes need to be made at the next meeting after the meeting to which the minutes refer. And so that would have required the amendment to be made at the January council meeting. And under the OMA, we are not able to go back now and amend the December 21st minutes at this February meeting.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any, it's a discussion topic if anyone has any further discussion on this. Councilmember Fluid?
I'll just add that the city attorney had advised me of this ahead of time. So there was one particular item that I had wanted to be included in the minutes that was not. And I will just bring that up later. It's something I wanted to circle back on anyway. So I'll just come back to that later in the meeting. Okay,
thank you. I'd also like to remind the public as well as I know council knows, but to remind the public that these meetings are being recorded. And so the complete content, if you're interested in a particular topic, would be available for review on our city website. Okay, thank you. Councilmember McConnell.
It just real quickly, it also was partly my issue, but I actually spoke to it that evening in the conversation with the city manager Seisler about the police chief search. So I think I'm good.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, let's move on to council comment, unfinished business. Is there any council comment? Councilmember Fluid.
So thanks. This is going to check that box for me. One of the comments that I had wanted included in the minutes was related to the DPW. And so what I will do instead is follow up on that earlier question, which was we had a lengthy discussion about we needed the new DPW facility because the old DPW facility is not in great shape. And several of us had raised the question that while we're waiting for the new facility to be addressed, we want to ensure that our employees are safe and comfortable while they're still in the old facility. And one thing I had especially touched on was the city manager had advised that the only thing that was really serious that required to be addressed immediately was the ventilation issue. So that was the thing I had wanted to include in the minutes, and that's what I'm going to go back and follow up on now, which is ventilation is the only issue that we really have to address prior to relocating to the new facility. And I wanted to come back to that and check and see if that had been addressed yet.
Yes, so I'll add a new discussion topic as well to that. We actually did have to do some roof patching above our office space due to some leaks we had also at DPW, so that was done already. I know Building Inspector Supel is working with DPW too regarding those vents. I would have to check back with him on that exact status at this time.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure that if that's something that needs to be addressed, I just want to make sure that's going to be followed up on and it's not left for too long. If that's going to actually affect the safety of the employees.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
After this, sorry, after this, I'll check with Building Inspector Supel and I'll follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other council comment on unfinished business? Councilmember Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has to do with the comment about the communicator. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to ask questions at that point. I'm just wondering if city manager has an update on the communicator, if there's a decision on when it will be out. I know Councilmember Reed mentioned that, but this is something that's very important to the beautification committee, and I've been talking to that commission, for quite some time trying to get that. So we just want to know, and a lot of residents really, really value that publication.
Yes, so thank you, Councilmember Raylan. The nice thing with the communicator is we really can control working with the newspaper on when we can have it circulate. I don't have the exact date right now. We're going through adding content right now, working with the Parks and Rec. So as soon as I have a date, I'll issue that out to the residents, and I'll let you know as well.
Okay, so if we wanted to add some content or suggest content, we can share that with you currently.
Yep, yeah, please bring it on my way. So
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just to clarify the comment about the newspaper, the communicator is distributed along with the Grosse Pointe Times, which goes to every household, and that was the most economically efficient way for the city to get the distribution out to every household. Okay, Councilmember Reed.
Just to follow up on that, City Manager Seisland, is Mary Beth Hathaway still the editor? I think is what she's called. Is she the one who collects all the content for that?
Yes, you can send it to Mary Beth Hathaway, or you can also send it to Chris Delmage, because he compiles it. So either one will work. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other council comment on unfinished business? Okay, I think we're all set on that. Now we move on to new business. The first item under new business is Zoning Board of Appeals. So at this time, council will convene not as council, but as the Zoning Board of Appeals, as provided for in our charter. Council sits as a Zoning Board of Appeals to review any variance petitions that come before us. We do have 3 variance petitions this evening, and we'll go through them in turn as they're listed in the agenda. The first one is 15710 East Jefferson, and it relates to a fence for the front yard. I'm going to ask the administration to introduce that, please.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Denner. I also have Building Inspector Ron Supel with us here. So I'll ask Ron if he could introduce this front yard fence variance. Ron, are you on the line? We'll give him a second here. All right, well, in the meantime, I'll introduce it till we can get Ron on the line. So based upon the summary that was given to you, the applicant wishes to erect a 4-foot high fence along Jefferson and a portion of Berkshire in their front yard setback on Berkshire. The ordinance prohibits fences in the front yard. This is section 27100B. And so our recommendation is allowing the fence to the ending wall of that house. So I'll ask, is Mr. Supel on the line now?
Yes, I'm here now.
Thanks, Ron. Can you discuss this variance a little further for the council?
Sure, absolutely. As Nick has said, the city manager, the applicant wishes to erect a 4-foot fence along the Jefferson side and along the portion of the Berkshire side, which is in the front yard setback. And if you look at the drawing that was submitted, the fence would run along Jefferson, and then it would make a 90-degree angle at Berkshire. And as what that creates, now that becomes a front yard setback for all the homes on Berkshire down the street. So therefore, we would not allow a fence in the front yard setback. It also could create some safety situations on traffic entering from either direction off of Jefferson to Berkshire and or from Berkshire coming to Jefferson. We would allow the fence to run along the Jefferson site. And then if you look at the drawing, it would have to kick back at a right angle at the leading wall of the building, which is actually the front yard setback of all the properties on Berkshire. Okay. Are there any questions with that?
Ron, let me restate to make sure I understand. The ordinance would say that the fence could be allowed along Jefferson up until you get to what you described as the front yard setback on Berkshire, which would be the wall of the home which faces Berkshire. That is
correct.
Per ordinance, that would eliminate the fence that went from that point to the corner and then the right angle back on Berkshire. So the corner portion is the portion that would be not allowed by ordinance and would be the subject of any variance that council would consider. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is, sir. Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Do we have the petitioner available to address council or address the zoning board of appeals rather?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm here.
Whoa.
You gotta turn one on.
Are you there?
Yeah, there's a major echo, which usually means that there's two audio sources in the same room.
Right, we're trying to close it, turn it on. I have my landscape architect with me here. Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I would like to have this fence for various reasons. I've lived here for 58 years. I have spent a fortune in the last 15 years trying to protect and save my bushes from dogs, bicyclers, and joggers cutting across my lawn, delivery men. This house was we bought the land, we built this house, and we were supposed to face Berkshire, but the city building department made us turn it on Jefferson because they didn't want the driveway to cut into Jefferson. Now, Jefferson is not your local neighborhood street. It's a street that has trucks, buses, ambulances, police cars. So I'm not asking for anything for a neighborhood street. I'm asking for it on a busy street. You've got wooden fences that are ugly. This fence would enhance Jefferson Avenue. You should see, I've spent a fortune. I put in 200 barberry bushes and they are being abused by the dog urine, by dog walkers for the last 15 years. The last 3 times I've had to replace close to 50 bushes because they won't grow. I even changed buying the bushes from 2 different people. I thought maybe they were putting them in incorrectly. Then I had a fertilizer guy finally tell me, he said, when the bushes are new, they are burned by the dog urine and that dirt, I even had the dirt checked at Michigan State. And they said, there's nothing wrong with the dirt. So please reconsider and let me put up a beautiful fence so that I can enjoy looking out my window and not seeing dead bushes and dogs using it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll be coming back to you with some questions, but I think I want to first find out if we have any neighbor feedback.
My neighbors are including it. They're think it's wonderful.
Well, we need to hear from them. And we have nothing in writing from your neighbors, and I don't know if any of your neighbors are on in the meeting that would like to use the hand.
No, they're not. I didn't know I had to. They signed the form for me. They thought it was a good idea. They signed the form, my neighbor right next door and right across the street.
Okay. Okay, we don't, oh, I see.
Yeah, it's in, Mayor, it's,
I see we do have the 2 neighbors' signatures.
Yes, they
Okay.
thought it was a great idea.
Okay.
Christmas Eve day, I was looking out my window. I used my driveway as my front door. Because you're not going to get out of your car and walk to the corner, go all the way to Jefferson and then come in your front door. Or you're not going to walk across the grass and bring your groceries in when your car and the door is on Berkshire.
Okay.
This is the front of my home. I'm not asking for it in front of my home. The Jefferson side to me is the Jefferson side. It's not my front door. It's an unusual situation, but I wouldn't have had this problem if you had let me build the house like we were supposed to by the builder.
Okay, thank you. I think I understand your request, Ms. Marcus. I have a couple of questions actually that I'd like to start off with for you. The first is, it was included in our package that in July of 2006, there was a similar request for variance. It was slightly different than this one, but a little bit, somewhat similar. And council, sitting as a zoning board of appeals at that time, indicated that a fence could be installed if it was a certain material and limited in height, in that case to 5 feet. What I don't have in the material is whether that request covered the same perimeter as this request, or was it different?
It was different.
Recall?
It was different. They wanted me to go from the edge of the house to the corner, and then from the edge of the house on the opposite side to my neighbor.
Okay.
The front would be open. That was the reason. And the reason I wanted it at that time is I had become a widow and I wanted it for safety, because I used to have people, being that you have a front door on Jefferson and no fence or bushes, people would ring my doorbell, they broke down. Could they use your phone? I had a lady, 2 ladies come at different times asking me for bus fare, because the buses used to stop right in front of my house. I've had people drop mail in the mailbox and they accidentally dropped their keys in there and they would come to my front door. I mean, so that's why I put in the 200 Barbaries, cost me a fortune, since 2006. I've been fighting those Barbaries since 2006. I put 200 Barbaries in, put in a drip line so that they would grow, fertilized them, trimmed them, and then I've had nothing but problems. Last 3 times that I've had to replace the 50 or 60 bushes because the dogs like those bushes. That's why I put the bushes in after that last meeting.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I can't afford to keep replacing it, and it looks terrible. The fence is gorgeous. If you looked at, I have a estimate, it would enhance my home and the neighborhood. But don't forget, Jefferson is a Wayne County road. It's not a neighborhood street. It doesn't, there's an exception to be made here. You
Sure.
have other fences in front of homes. I don't care about them, but they're there. Why does mine have to be so difficult when I have a real reason?
Okay, I've got one other follow-up question. There was nothing in our material that described the design of the fence and indicated it
Well,
was
I was going to
aluminum.
give you a booklet. I have it. I got an
Can you
estimate. It's
just-
cost, pardon,
can you
it's
just-
for?
Can you or your landscape architect either describe the fence? For example, what comes to mind to me when I hear about an aluminum fence is that it may be an aluminum fence that mimics the look of a wrought iron fence, or it may be a solid aluminum fence that mimics the look of a solid wood fence.
No, they can't see you.
Oh.
It's going to be a 4-foot, it's Kimberly fence, and they also installed the other brown aluminum gates that she has on either side by the garage and the side door and going into the garage. But it would be a 4-foot, it's a brown to match the brown trim of the house. And it's going to be an aluminum fence. You know, at that point, it's going to be a design that has, that typically Kimberly fence designs to meet the standards and the requirements. It's not going to be, it's going to meet the spacing of the post, and it's going to be to be able to maintain and look good. I'm going to say is that the color is going to be in the fence and not something that has to be repainted year after year.
Okay, it still didn't answer my question. In other words, is this a fence that will be solid or something that you can look through?
Oh, no, it's going to be look through.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to be an open, so it's going to be actual sort of per se, it's not going to be a picket fence, but it's going to be a typical aluminum design, which might be a 1x1, and then posts, which will be 3x3s, and then with a horizontal, double horizontal, and one at the
I wish I
bottom.
could show you a picture.
Okay,
'cause
I
haven't-
think I understand from that description. Council, do you have, or I'm sorry, zoning board of appeals members, do you have questions? Councilmember Rowland, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Marcus, let me just understand. This is the house that it looks like a very cool 60s, early 70s home, correct?
That's it.
Yeah, so that's the, and I remember seeing your bushes, and I also want to say it's a corner lot on Jefferson. I know we have a wall that goes on the other side of Jefferson at I think it's one of the other B streets, either Berkshire or Balfour. I know there's a cement wall I think the city has paid for. Looking at your red bushes, you'd be putting this fence up between the sidewalk, where the sidewalk ends, butting into your bushes. So you may have to trim some of those bushes on installation. Is that correct?
We're gonna take the bushes all out.
The bushes
Oh, you
will be
are?
removed.
All the bushes would be removed. The fence that they want to do for me is over $10,000. So I
Yeah.
was going to take all the bushes out and the grass and replace it with the fence and sod so that my house looks like it should, because it's a gorgeous house. I've enjoyed it for the 58 years I've lived here.
I love it. I love seeing it all the time. I always think it's like a
Well,
Brady.
thank you. You'll
Yeah.
have to come in next time.
Yeah. Once COVID is gone in about 6-7 months, hopefully. I understand that Mr. Supel said that the fence could go up to the front of the house, which would be the front of the house on Berkshire. Is that correct, Mr. Supel, if you're still on the call?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there a reason we can't let her go to the corner?
Yeah, just because that becomes the front yard setback for all the properties on Berkshire. So
Okay.
that's why she had to apply to ZBA.
Okay. So we're allowed to override that or accept this addendum.
That's correct. Yeah, we can grant
That
the
is correct.
we can grant the variance to permit that if we
And
so
how-
choose.
How far around on Berkshire would you like to go, Ms. Marcus?
Up to her driveway, up to the first part of the driveway. So it would not go the whole length of Berkshire. It would only go up to the first driveway, which basically that portion of the driveway also leads into the walkway going up to the front of the house.
Yeah. And then you said that gate's going to match the gate that's between your house and existing garage right now, correct?
Right, I have a
Correct.
gate on each side of my garage.
Yeah, and
it
that's
would-
pretty beautiful. I have no problem with that. I would support that I wish we had someplace in the city, maybe a subset of planning commission that could approve these kind of improvements to make sure they stay in line with what we value in our city, which is the uniqueness and old character. But I have no problem with that kind of a fence. I think being on the corner, we do need a little more security, and we have it on some of the other homes. So with the design intent that you have chosen, I would really appreciate it to see it all the time. So you have my support.
Okay, other Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Mrs. Marcus. I was on the council with the mayor last time you had a request. I drove by your house today. It's beautiful. The barberry bushes, many of them are still there. Approximately how much footage are we talking from Jefferson on Berkshire? On the Berkshire side?
Hang on, we've got the map. I mean, she
Just-
measured it. She's got it right here.
Well, she mentioned from point A to B, but how many feet is that? Roughly.
It's all attached.
It only looks like about 10 to 15 feet.
That's about all.
Yeah, it's probably a bit more than
Got
that.
it right here. You had drawings. We included drawings that she drew for me.
Yeah,
Hang
well,
on. It up.
Not long at all. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate it.
okay, other questions, Councilmember Reed?
So just so I understand, the proposed fence is 4 feet high, correct?
Correct?
It will not be solid.
No,
No, it will not be solid.
So, and this would be a question for Mr. Supel. With the proposed fence not being solid, is that still create what you described as a visibility issue at the corner there? Because that's my primary concern is is for traffic
Yeah,
and
that's-
pedestrian?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There's a couple of things that I've noticed on this drawing that we have all in front of us. She wants to meet the corner of the fence line on the opposite side, not the Berkshire side, the opposite side. And it looks like that height will now become 4 foot 4 inches, which makes sense to butt up to the existing fence. But if we look at our drawing, also it says proposed fence will be 5 foot running along the Jefferson side. And then it runs, it appears, along that length of Jefferson to that corner of Berkshire and Jefferson, at which point it jumps down to the new 4 foot height, it looks like. So I guess there's two questions. One, indeed, it's going to be a 4 foot fence. And two, from the break of that front or side wall that borders all the front yard setbacks on Berkshire, is that fence going to be visible enough to see through it so the traffic coming off Jefferson from the left or right to Berkshire is going to have enough visibility, and then also coming down Berkshire that to Jefferson, that there's going to be enough visibility in the event there's a bicyclist or cyclist or runner or whatever. And again, I did not see a detail either, like the mayor had asked earlier, on what the fence would look like. So I'm guessing a 4 foot aluminum fence would be, as she said, no more than 4 inches on center with the spindles. And obviously there would be some portion of the fence that has a horizontal bar on the top and the bottom. And certainly we would want no spikes on top of the fence that would be a safety issue in the event of that, that being the design. So again, indeed, is it going to be a 4 foot fence along the entire length of Jefferson and the breaking point to Berkshire and down Berkshire? And is the visibility going to be enough to have the safety factor involved so we do not have any inherent accidents at that corner?
So if
there is a mailbox there, and that corner is used an awful lot. I know when I've been up and down there, a lot of cars were stopped on the wrong side of the street to use the mailbox.
Yep.
And I'm just hopeful that if there is a fence put up, that the zoning board of appeals is concerned, obviously, with the safety issue on that corner.
So my question, just to follow up on that, if, as you just described, it was 4 feet, it had the spacing, the spindle spacing, no spikes on top. I think those are the main issues that you just described. If it met those specifications, does that satisfy you in terms of having the visibility at that corner for traffic, for pedestrians, and for cyclists?
Well, the way I read the ordinance, again, it has to be a variance from the ZBA. I can only, on my side or portion, I can only allow the fence along the Jefferson side and then to break at the wall of the corner of the house. So there would be no yard in the front yard, no fence in the front yard setback.
I think we're asking the building inspector to answer
I agree.
an opinion instead of ordinance. So I think that we probably can't ask him to do that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We did have, by the way, in 2006, there was a limited, actually a limited variance granted that was never acted upon, but the language in there may be useful for council to revisit, which I think was in your package. And that at that time in 2006, the Board of Zoning Appeals finds that because of location of property and exposure to public, the strict application of zoning regulations result in peculiar exception practical difficulties to or exceptional undue hardship upon the owner of such property, and that such property in a vicinity of high vehicle and pedestrian traffic, and that the variances sought by the petitioner can be granted in form and subject to the conditions as determined. And the language there about hardship and unique difficulties are actually part of the rationale, which allows us, if we so choose, to grant the variance. Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to our staff team for guiding us on this decision. I think their input is important. And thank you to Mrs. Marcus as well for her tenacity and endurance throughout this. Clearly, she's tried to solve it over the years using compliant methods. So those attempts are noted. And I've also noted your commitment to equality of materials and design. So for those reasons, I'd like to move approval as noted.
Okay, so I think the council's ready to act on this. Is there a motion relative to the variance? Councilmember Hodges, can you state your motion, please?
Yes, I would move approval of the variance requested at 15710 East Jefferson for a front yard variance, recognizing the hardships and unique circumstances at that site. Move approval.
Okay, is there support? Councilmember Rowland. Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor, reluctantly, I would like to table this motion till the next council meeting. And here's the reason why I would like to do that. We talk about the fence. I am confident it's a great fence. It is a beautiful fence. The fact of the matter is we have not visualized that fence. We're talking about safety and visibility. I would respectfully request that the council or the zoning board of appeals get a pic or something that shows the actual fence so we can make a better decision. We're kind of guessing. We got the description of it tonight, but I'd like to see a drawing, a commercial picture of that fence, that I'm confident that there aren't visibility problems.
Could I make a suggestion that maybe rather than tabling, if the motion was amended to put in some of the specific design things that we just talked about, including the confirming the 4-foot height, the spindle design, and no spikes on top, that might be sufficient description to get us past the notion of putting this off.
You're looking for an amendment, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I'm asking that Councilman Robson is proposing an amendment or a motion to table. So
yes,
if he wants to proceed with that, I'll see if there's support for tabling.
So I'd just like to add to that if I could. I really respect Councilman Robson's suggestion there. What we could do is if I can share my screen, she has her existing fence on her house on Google Maps showing the design of the fence she's going to use. We can show that. And then also we mentioned that we need to add the amendment of 4 foot on that design. It does say 5 foot as Mr. Supel pointed out. So we'd have to add that amendment to 4 foot.
Your application says 4 foot though.
The application says
drawing it says 5.
Well, it says both actually.
Yeah.
So,
The 5-foot dimension is the setback from the sidewalk to meet the existing requirements of meeting where the other fence post ends. So it's 5 feet off the sidewalk.
Okay, I see proposed fence at 5 foot.
okay, I understand that one now. Okay, that clarifies that from the drawing. Did you say you had a design, something that you could share with us, and maybe
yeah, if I can share my screen.
That's more or less what we're looking at.
Yeah, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, he's showing your fence.
So there's the fence right there.
So it's that style fence, but at 4 foot high is what's being proposed?
And horizontal, no
horizontal.
arc to it.
And horizontal, no curves, right?
Right.
Horizontal and no curves.
Yeah.
That helps us visualize it a lot. Councilmember Robson, I think your point was valid to say would be nice to see what it looks like. So this is the luxury of technology and Google Maps.
So what this confirms is that it's a spindle design, and it'd be probably of approximately that color. And therefore you can see through it.
And you can see through it. Okay, I am satisfied. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilmember Rowland as well.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Okay.
I agreed with you though. It'd be nice to see what kind of design it was. So I did know she said that it was the same as between the fence. So I was able to pull that up.
Okay,
So
thank you. So Councilman Robson, do you withdraw your motion to?
I do.
Okay, is there any other further discussion? Call the roll, please. So a yes vote is to approve the variance. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rayland,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner.
Yes, motion passes. Mrs. Marcus, congratulations, you can build your fence.
Thank you very much to all of you. I will love it, and wave when you come by.
Okay.
I'm coming in for coffee.
Thank you for your patience and thank you for following our process. I really truly appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to the variance, which is 11 Audubon, and this has to do with emergency generator installation. I'll ask the administration to introduce that one as well, please.
Yes, Mr. Supel, could you please introduce this variance request before the ZBA?
Yes, the applicant at 1120 Audubon wishes to install a emergency electrical generator in the side yard setback. And the ordinance only allows generators to be installed in the rear yard setback. Therefore, a variance had to be applied for.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner available?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
and Mrs. Nowinski? Not sure if they're there or not.
Am I on? Can
Yes,
you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking the time tonight to hear us. My name's Tom Nowinski. Of course, I live at 1120 Audubon. My wife, Mickey, and I moved here in October of 1978, so we've only been here for 42 years. But hopefully with this improvement that we're discussing here, we'll be able to stay here for a longer period of time. Power outages are not that frequent in Grosse Pointe Park, but when they come, they seem to come to the same neighborhoods. And one of the neighborhoods that seems to be affected is between Audubon and Bishop and between Mac and Jefferson. It seems like every time the lights go out, they go out here. The precipitating event here was the storm that we had last summer with the straight line winds that knocked an enormous branch down onto our driveway, just a couple of yards from our dining room window. And although that didn't turn off our power, that was what made us decide that we should look at getting an emergency generator. We had 4 different contractors come out to give us quotes. Each of them indicated that the best location would be the one shown on the site plan that I provided to the building department. If you have had an opportunity to look at the photographs that I sent along, there really is no practical possibility of installing this generator behind the house. This is really the only place it can be. I talked to Mr. Supel, and he indicated, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that his hands were tied by the language of the ordinance. So that's why we're here tonight. This location is well sheltered by structures and shrubbery. It's behind the existing air conditioning compressors and the shrub that covers those. And we would also be putting a shrub in to cover this one as well. This location is not on a direct sight line with any home on the block. So for those reasons, and let me say one more thing. I had a question from my neighbor on that side about how much noise this type of generator makes. The manufacturer's spec sheet says that at full blast, it puts out 67 decibels. I have a chart here from Purdue University that indicates that a vacuum cleaner is 70. So it's in the neighborhood of a vacuum cleaner out there. I'm sure it's not as loud as most of the lawnmowers in this neighborhood. So I don't think this will be an issue for any of our neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We did get one one letter from, one email from your immediate neighbor in support of your proposed siting of the generator. So I think that's important. The other thing that well, first of all, is there any other neighbor feedback that we have, city manager?
Leah, do we have anyone in the queue from the neighbors?
City Manager Seisman, I don't have anyone in the queue, but I'm not sure that they know that they need to do the raise hand. So if you would like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad or raise your hand in the Zoom application.
Okay, we'll just wait for a moment on that. While we're waiting for that, a couple of things that I'll mention for council's benefit. Our ordinances also essentially prohibit placing air conditioning units on the side yard. However, it provides the exception of neighbor approval. So air conditioning units, we already have memorialized in our ordinances that we can gain neighbor approval. When generators, Mayor Pro Tem Robson and I are probably of long enough tenure to be able to comment on this. When generators started to become a bit more common in our city, there were a couple of issues with them. One was that, well, first of all, that the obvious thing would be to cite them similar to an air conditioning requirement. So the ordinance was modeled after the air conditioning ordinance. Council at the time specifically did not include the exception for neighbor approval for a couple reasons. One, it was a relatively new application. We wanted to see how that worked out across our city. Second, generators of that era, when we adopted the ordinance, were actually much noisier than they are today. And the installations are more common today than they used to be. So with those two things, it's not out of line with what we typically do, what we provided for air conditioning units, but it is unique to the generator situation because council at the time wanted the Zoning Board of Appeals to have greater control, which is why it comes before us tonight. So with that, questions, Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, this question is for the city manager. In our ordinance review committee discussions, I believe this was a specific ordinance that you wanted us to look at as a committee because the situation with generators has changed and the way our ordinance is now written, it's a burden on the city because it has to come to this in these situations. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilmember Reed. This is something that the building department and I have discussed looking at our current set of ordinances. With the increased amount of interest in regards to generators, we expect to have a lot more of those. And that's why I will probably be proposing at our next ordinance review a slight amendment allowing the building department to have that review with possible neighbor consent. Which would then, allow us to not have to go to the ZBA. That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move to a motion? Councilmember McConnell.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Supple, was the only concern in terms of the existing language as it relates to this, or were there any other concerns about this location?
No, we've got, as the mayor had said, all mechanical equipment is getting better with time, just like anything is. So, the generators have come a long way, and the decibel level continues to decrease along with air conditioning. Years ago, the air conditioners made as much noise as the doggone generators. So, at one time, it is a concern, and even though they have gotten better, there are still people that noise to them can be any decibel level, and it does bother some individuals more than others. So the ordinance, I think, was written on a noise basis based on the circumstances of the equipment, and therefore it did have to go to ZBA.
But specific to this property, that was the only reason. There wasn't some other concern that you had beyond what the language was?
No, not at all. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Reed?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve the Nowinski's application for a permit to install their emergency electric generator in the rear side yard as shown in the sketches provided to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
And I have support from Councilmember Bellin. City Manager, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, just before we do that, sorry to interrupt everybody. I just want to make sure we'll do the *9 again if there was any comment from the public. Leah, did we have any?
I show no public comment in the queue.
Okay. Sir, any further discussion on the motion? Councilmember Hodges?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Seisland was doing that on my behalf. I had a resident asking, she's having difficulty finding the *9 or the raise hand function. I'm not sure if there's additional instructions that can be given her.
For any resident that's using a cell phone or regular phone, they just have to hit the *9 function on their phone. If they're using a tablet or computer, there's a raise hand function on the bottom of your screen. Those are the best descriptions I can give.
You may have to hit show dial pad as well. If she's on a cell phone, she may not see the number keys. So if she hits show dial pad.
She's
Or
on
you
a
can have her-
laptop.
You can have
She's
her
on a-
text. Why don't you have her text you her comment and see if it needs to be discussed further.
Mr. City Attorney or Mr. Mayor, what would be appropriate at this time? She's now saying go ahead and vote. So,
Okay. All right. So
Thank you.
thank you. We try. Technology works when it works. With that, is there any further discussion before we call the roll? Councilmember Rowland?
Yeah, I'd just like to add the decibel level is at an acceptable level at installation. I wonder if there's any kind of amendment we can add to say that if this comes to a point, let's say the neighbors move and now a new neighbor comes in and this goes into disrepair and gets up to 78 decibels, which is like a dishwasher or a washing machine. So it gets a little bit louder. I don't know what the process is to say that they can then come back to the ZBA to say, hey, now this thing is in disrepair and it's super loud. Whereas right now it's the volume of laughter, kids laughter.
My sense of that is that it might be pretty arbitrary at this point. Maybe it's something the Ordinance Review Committee can consider for the long term, but I would caution against trying to do that in this motion.
Yeah.
Councilman Reed?
I would just think that would, be more addressed with the nuisance ordinance in general, not
Perfect.
specific to this.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I make a quick comment?
You're interrupting our ability to call the roll, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Stupel, go ahead.
It's fine.
Do we need to
I
hear?
was just going to make a quick comment. In some of the other communities, us inspectors carry a decibel meter, and when that becomes an issue, we are capable of measuring those decibel levels, and if it did exceed them, then we would pursue it from there. That's all.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Okay, let's call the roll on the motion to approve the variance.
Councilmember Rayland,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner.
Yes, motion passes. Mr. Nowinski, you can install your generator, and thank you very much for your patience in following our process.
Thank you all for considering us. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening. We have one more variance to consider. It is from 1200 Devonshire. We had a similar but somewhat different request before us in a previous meeting, which we did deny at the time. The request has been modified at least to some degree, and it's back before us. So I'm going to ask the administration to introduce it, please.
Thank you. Mr. Supel?
Yes, this request is the 1200 block of Devonshire, 1200 Devonshire, and the resident wishes to erect a 1,847 square foot addition to the existing 3,005 square foot home. The addition will be a 2-story addition behind the garages. It is not defined on the revised drawing what the interior details of the addition will be. The new addition will not meet the City of Grosse Pointe Park zoning requirements, Article 10 Schedule of Regulations RA, which requires a rear yard setback of 30 feet and a side yard setback of 10 feet 8 inches. The new addition will have a rear yard setback of 19 feet 4 1/8 inches and a side yard setback of 6 foot 5 inches and 12 foot 9 5/8 respectively.
Okay,
So
thank you. Is the, oh, I'm sorry, continue.
No, go ahead. So basically, this came to us once before, and it has been changed considerably to the type of addition that it's going to be and the size and the height, but it still does not meet the article Schedule of Regulations RA, which requires obviously the rear yard setback of 30 feet and the side yard setback of 10 foot 8, and therefore it has to be approved by ZBA in order for this addition to be built.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner present?
Yes, this is Richard Tepper.
Oh, Mr. Tepper, you've got an echo as well. I don't know if you've got more than one audio source where you are.
I think we're good here.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
I didn't hear an echo that time, so you might be all right.
Okay. So as Ron mentioned in the last meeting in November, the recommendation was
Yeah,
to
we still do have an echo. Counselor, are you able to hear Mr. Tepper okay?
Oh, I think it's gone now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so the recommendation was to circle back with Ron and try to come up with an alternative plan to make improvements to the layout, which I had done. So I reduced or actually increased the amount of space between the dwelling and the setback on the north, east, and south side. Also reducing the overall footprint by almost 300 square feet.
Okay, are you still with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the rationale and intended use and why we should consider approval?
Well, I mean, my wife and I and our family, we are seeking more space, more living space, more garage space, and I think when working with the architects, this is about the best layout we could come up with in keeping with the character of the home, the character of the Grosse Pointes. Certainly, we want to make sure when we do the addition, it won't look like an addition. We're very particular in the materials and the design that we use. Everything that we've done in our home for the last 25 years has respected the period. All the materials that I've used here on improvements are period to make certain that, you know, everything looks original. I mean, that's always been our intent. So.
Okay.
Same roofing material, same brick material, copper accents. I mean, all the same design elements that we have, we're going to incorporate.
Okay, thank you. On the on neighbor feedback, I'm in possession of 4 emails on the topic. 3 of them are opposed from and at least one of them immediate neighbor. One is concerned only about the drainage issue. So with that solved, that particular neighbor was okay. The other 2 were opposed primarily on the basis of size and scale. City Manager, do we have any other comments, any other neighbor feedback that the ZBA should consider, or anybody in the queue?
Yes, it looks like I do have one person in the queue. Leah, do you want to get that started, please?
Yes, I can. Before I do so, I just want to confirm, Mayor Denner, are we still doing the 3-minute timer?
No, in this particular case, we don't need to limit it to 3 minutes, although if it goes on and on and on, I may, as chair, cut it off, but don't need to do the 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So the first person, your screen name starts with Law, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Yes,
And
this is
please,
Rudy
yes.
Wednoya. I live at
Yes,
11.
please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. It's Rudy Wednoy. I live at 1143 Devonshire, and I'm a newbie. I've only been there for 34 years. I'm about a half a block from the 1200 property. Sitting in my front yard, I look at the Kirchhoff side of that building, and I'm opposed to the variance. The variance would allow for building basically a Bigfoot on the property, because it covers most of the property plus the front with the driveway that they've got. It's a big driveway that also covers a lot of the cement. I think it's totally out of character with the neighborhood and with Grosse Pointe in general. Usually homes of that size are on bigger lots. Also, the 4 garage doors that'll be facing Kirchhoff, it's going to make it look somewhat like a service station rather than a home. And finally, there is a huge drainage issue in the backyards along Devonshire. My backyard floods a foot every spring. I pump for 24 hours to get it out and out to the front. And the more we cover, the worse it's going to get. So I'm opposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else in the queue?
Yes, Mayor Denner, I have one more person in, I have 2 more people in the queue. Jane Boyle, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you.
And please state yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Gene Boyle, and I am an attorney and friend of Rick Tepper. In fact, my office is kitty corner from Grosse Pointe Park City Council building. I'm at Jefferson and Barrington. A couple of points to make. First of all, this is not a Bigfoot house at all. In fact, I think the ordinance maxes out 35% use of the property. This addition would have a total usage of the property of 25%. So we're well within the usage restrictions. I'd like to talk a little bit too about character and the quality and precedence. And before I get into that, you should know that if you've had a chance to come by 1200 Devonshire at all, the home is kept in meticulous condition, inside and out, which is no surprise. Mr. Tepper is a General Motors engineer, and his wife is a surgeon, and they attend to the details of their home as closely as they attend to the details of their work. The character of this addition is going to be 100% consistent with the character of the home and the character of the neighborhood. And the Teppers will be very, very focused on that. The quality of the materials and the design will be consistent, will be with the way the home was originally designed and built in 1926. And as far as precedence of this project, we walked Kirchhoff 6-7 blocks this afternoon, and along the corner houses, the Kirchhoff side of the corner houses, there are a number of homes that have structures or additions that come up as near as 5 feet from the sidewalk, from the Kirchhoff sidewalk. So this addition that's being proposed is not out of the ordinary with some of the other homes along Audubon, along the corners of Audubon and Kirchhoff, or 3 Mile and Kirchhoff. The Teppers have always decided that, well, have decided they want to expand their home. Part and parcel of that decision going from back burner to front burner is Mr. Tepper's parents getting a little bit older, and the understanding that the point in time will come where they'll have to find alternative living, and the Teppers would prefer to have their parents in their own home as opposed to in assisted living.
I hope you got this broadcast from a city council meeting.
And so what they're proposing here is an addition that is entirely consistent with the existing structure. It falls well within the 35% maximum lot usage, and it will very much enhance not only their property, but the neighborhood. No one will be looking at an eyesore. And as far as drainage, Mr. Tepper has the drainage worked out where the drainage is going to drain towards the Kirchhoff side. And as Mr. Mayor already noted, the neighbor to the opposite side of the house has already been satisfied with that adjustment. So I would thank you, Mr. Mayor and council people, for the opportunity to be heard. And I would hope that this would result in a yes vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have more neighbor feedback or others to speak relative to this application?
Yes, we have two more. Leah, do you want to get that started?
Richard, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please. And please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes, we can hear you.
My name is Mary Ann Nelson. I'm just using my son Richard's laptop because I'm not exactly a spring chicken, and I've been here for 40 plus years. I live on Buckingham, and when last October, when the first plans were available at the Park City Hall, I went down and looked at them, and that was for a variance. We're going to build a structure of 2120 square feet. And this structure that they want is 1847 square feet. Now that's only 273 square feet less than last October's request, and that request was denied. And I was against it, this building taking place last October, and I'm still very strongly opposed to granting this variance. And my reasons for opposing the variance are that, as I stated before last October, that this is more like building a second residence rather than just building an addition. I happened Saturday, I called Adahawk Realtors just to see the availability of 1,800 square feet homes in our area. And without any hesitation, the realtor cited 5 homes that are 1,800 square feet or less in both Grosse Pointe Park and Grosse Pointe City. So this is a huge addition. It's like building a second home, not just an addition. Plus, the floor plans for last October included more detail than what we received. Last October, it showed a separate kitchen. It showed a separate garage. At that time, there was no access between the main house and this new addition. I don't know if they changed that because these plans aren't quite as detailed. Another reason that I oppose this is that I know that in talking to people at City Hall, they've told me that they cannot rent this unit. It's not, it's not zoned for rental. But if a variance is granted now for this, who says in the future that there could be another request and that it could be perhaps used as a rental in the future? And finally, I know like in some cities, they have in the past had trouble or had people building huge houses on small lots. I don't want our neighborhood to become that type of a situation where you have these huge supersized homes that are just overly large for the lot spaces. So for those reasons, I still remain very much opposed to having this building created. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nelson. Just for council's benefit, that's Mrs. Nelson is essentially explaining to us an email that you all did receive in your package. Do we have anybody else in the queue?
Yes, we do have one other person at this time. Leah, do you want to start us off?
Anna, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. This is Anna Signorino. I'm at 1220 Whittier, and I had the pleasure of meeting the woman of the house 6 years ago while she was working in her garden. And I commented to her 6 years ago how absolutely exquisite her home is. It is one of the finest homes in Grosse Pointe Park. And we walked past that home, walking to and from the middle school and to the elementary school. And I am in full support of that addition because I know that they will design something so that it's true to the nature of the beauty and the aesthetics of the home itself and also to our community. I have every confidence that they will do a superb job. And as we're looking forward in the next 5 to 10 years, as the baby boomers are aging and we're looking to have a age at home, I can see where there is a desire for additional dwelling units like what we're popping up in California and other areas, because our land in Grosse Pointe Park is limited to 2.17 square miles. We do not have a lot of space for senior living. That's something that we can address at city planning. I support this couple to have the addition put on. Thank you.
Thank you. City manager, do we have anybody else?
Mayor, we do not.
Okay.
This is Richard Tepper. Can I just address a couple of concerns?
Sure.
Yeah. So I understand people are nervous about additions. I've seen several additions in the area that don't look very good, and they look like they are additions. And I can assure you that, you know, our number one priority is to make it so it looks like the addition was never added later in time. So it was original to the home. As Anna stated, it's very important to us that we keep the same design aspects in the period and make it look like it's always been here. That's our number one goal. And, you know, regarding the concern about rental property, I mean, I'm not even zoned in a rental area, so that'd be illegal to do. And you know, that's not something that I'd ever care to venture into. So that definitely would never occur here. And then a lot of the space, the 1,847 square feet addition, a lot of that is comprised of two-car garage that I wish they had. So it's not all living space, obviously.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll open it up to council for to ask questions or to make comments. Council or zoning, I'm sorry, Board of Zoning Appeals. Anybody have anything? Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, thank you. And I've heard the comments, and we've also received some email comments about the proposed addition. And I agree that it appears that the Teppers are attempting a very high quality addition to their home in line with the construction of their 1926, I think they said, home. So I agree with that. And this is a prominent home. I think most of us probably drive by it on a regular basis. It's very noticeable and it is well kept. But when we're granting a variance, you know, I'm very interested in the hardship. And I think, you know, we heard that earlier with Mrs. Marcus. But Mr. Tepper explained that they want more space, which that's, very common for people to want more space and buy a larger home or put on a small addition. And then with the aging parents issue, that's also, it's not a unique situation to this applicant or to a small subset of applicants. I do agree that it's a concern in our city that we don't have what would be considered a stock of senior housing or other facilities for our aging population to stay in our community. But again, that would be a very common concern that I think, many residents would have. And then in terms of precedents, Mr. Boyle was speaking to other houses along Kercheval, but I'm not aware of any time in my service on council or in recent memory prior to my service where we've granted a variance for an addition this large on a lot of this size. I don't think that there's precedence for that. So, and then the hardscape, the drainage issues, adding hardscape is going to increase drainage issues on the corner and for the surrounding neighbors. So I think that's a very valid concern. So those are concerns that I have, and I'd like to hear from my colleagues on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll make a couple of observations. The issue at hand, the direct issue at hand, is the setback requirements, and the issue and the reason, as I see the plans, that the setback requirements come up as an issue is the scale of the addition. A smaller addition, wouldn't necessarily require these sort of accommodations for setback, or perhaps the lot can accommodate an appropriate addition. So that the objections that I heard from the immediate neighbors related to size and scale and the impact on the neighborhood as a result fit exactly with the setback issues that we have specifically to deal with as the variance request. So I do have some concerns about the scale. I had some concerns last time about the potential use and essentially two dwellings, but the scale we have, based on what we have, I do have some concerns about the scale.
Mayor, excuse me, can I just make a comment about the scale?
Sure.
The current requirement is based on the size of my lot. The amount of usage is 35% of the lot size. I'm allowed per the your current requirement. My addition comes in at 25%.
Right.
So even with that requirement, I'm well, 10% below the existing requirement.
Right. Yeah. My concern isn't just about isn't specifically to that point. It's the setback requirements, particularly that essentially impose on the neighbors. The reason for the setback requirements in the ordinance is to protect the neighbors and as a whole. So that it's more that specific point than coverage was my concern. Anybody else on council? Councilmember Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tepper, Dr. Tepper, I really commend what you're trying to do here to build that second dwelling for your aging parents. We addressed this last time when you brought this to council, that we don't have a stock of elderly housing, and hopefully our master plan can help address that. My wife and I are going through the same kind of situation. We don't have the space that you do, but as Mr. Mayor said, and Councilmember Reed mentioned, this is a very large addition you're adding, and you are sticking within the 35% usage, which is a question I had, but you're adding a 61% size addition to what you currently have. And with the setbacks, I'd have to agree with Mr. Mayor and Ms. Reed on this, that it's just too large and too close to pushing those setbacks to be acceptable. I'm not sure if you can downsize a little bit or come up with a different design to make this work, but I'm sure there's something we can do to get you to be able to still take care of your parents, but in a different manner. So I have to apologize to not, I can't support this as is right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else on council have comments? If not, is there a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Robson,
I make the motion to deny the variance request.
is there support?
Support.
Councilmember Rowland, and I will play the role of former Councilmember Clark. A yes vote is actually a no on the variance request. So a yes is a no on the variance request. With that clarity, is there any further discussion before we call the roll? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rayland,
I'm sorry, Mr. and Dr. Tepper, but I have to say yes here.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Yes.
Hodges, Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner.
Yes, motion passes, therefore the variance is denied. And Mr. Tepper, I appreciate the.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, I was asking for 3 variances. Which of the variances is being denied? Because for me to go back to try to come up with another alternative, it's going to cost me a few $1,000s in architectural fees and studies. And, you know, like we had said in the last meeting, you wanted me to circle back with the building inspector, Ron, to try to come up with an alternative plan, which I did do that. And now I'm being denied again. So I'm not quite certain what alternatives I have here.
I think that
With variances.
you heard the same discussion that we all did on the concerns. The specific variance that's being requested, it relates to setback, and there's a substantial difference between the 30-foot setback requirement and the 19 feet that is in the one dimension. I think that is I think that got everybody's attention as in addition to the size. I can't speak for council, and I can't speak with hypotheticals about what the next or any other request may entail, but this is specifically about setbacks, and that's what was denied. With that, I think we should move on, Councilmember Hodges, to other business.
If I could just ask Mayor Denner, in the past, we've had a history of refunding the fee that the applicants have made in the event of a denial of a motion. I think as an act of goodwill, perhaps that's something we could consider here. Mr. Tepper and his family are obviously the kinds of residents that have committed to the park that we want. I'm very hopeful that he can find an option here in Grosse Pointe Park because we do want to retain him. And I'm a Devonshire resident as well, so I get to see his beautiful home every day. And I certainly don't want him to leave here feeling badly about his city, and thought maybe that could be a goodwill gesture that we consider.
With that.
Support by Councilmember Rowland. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rayland,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Yes.
Hodges, Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner.
Yes, motion passes. The fee will be refunded. Thank you, and we need to move on to our next bit of business. That closes the Zoning Board of Appeals session, and the next item under new business is OMA discussion. This was added to our agenda at the request of Councilmember Fluid, and I'll ask the city attorney to introduce it, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll let Councilmember Fluid, speak to her addition of this. I think this relates to the closed door session that was related to Mr. Seisland's personnel review and some of the discussion that's been had, potential for an investigation or some other mechanism to examine what happened. But I think Councilmember Fluid probably is in the best situation to discuss this agenda item. And I'm happy to support that with any commentary.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I obviously I had read a statement, and I'm not going to repeat that statement again in the interest of time. But last Monday at the end of our meeting, I had called for an investigation into what I believe was a violation of the confidentiality that we are always enjoined to when we go into a closed door session. And that confidentiality is there to protect any employees who request it when they're in a closed door session for personnel review. I have received statements from residents. I got one email from someone who is opposed to an investigation. I heard from several others who supported an investigation. And I spent the last week discussing it with some attorneys, including the city attorney, obviously, with some law enforcement professionals. And the city attorney and I discussed that the city just simply has no mechanism for this type of thing, unfortunately. For the sake of impartiality, I think the best option would have been to hire a special investigator to address this. I do think it's important. I feel that we should be able to address it. However, to hire someone to complete that process would cost more residents' tax money than I am comfortable spending. So I will withdraw my request for the investigation with two caveats. First of all, I would ask that the person who put these allegations out into the community consider stepping forward and addressing the situation. And secondly, just to let our residents know who are following this situation that if anyone does want to share any information that they have about how the situation developed, they should feel free reaching out to me or the city attorney, whoever they would feel comfortable speaking to at any time now or even in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on this topic? I'll have a comment before we move on, but I want to see if Councilmember McConnell.
I just wanted to say that my concern with council doing an investigation is just, just doesn't make a lot of sense for council to investigate themselves from a credibility standpoint, from an appearance standpoint. I also looked into the OMA and it doesn't have a lot of teeth and historically enforcement. So there's a lot of shortcomings, but the biggest concern I had about council investigating themselves is the lack of credibility, the lack of authority. So those are the concerns I have about it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before I make a comment? Councilmember Reed?
Yeah, just I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I've done my own research on this issue, and law enforcement seems to be at a loss as well. But I would encourage us as a council to work on trust and collaboration. I think the community is expecting it, and I think we should expect that of each other.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll say as we get ready to move on that the sentiments that Councilmember Reed just shared with us about let's move forward together and trust each other and work to have productive processes and also be good stewards of the city resources. I think as a council as a whole, we can continue improving this area, and I believe that we will. I appreciate Councilmember Fluitt's research on this and conclusion that the best course of action under the circumstances is to withdraw the request. And I appreciate that, and also that we had a chance to bring this topic forward. So thank you. With that, I think we'll move on to the next item of business, which is council comment on new business. Council, do we have a comment? Councilmember McConnell.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, I got it. So I'm happy to comment tonight and as a follow-up to something that I mentioned in the past, which was how to build on the Food for the Holidays program. So I'm proud to say that a group of us convened in January to work on basically a way to support residents and businesses that have been impacted by COVID. We didn't want to do that in a vacuum, so we talked about the best way to approach that. So our group, excuse me, our group decided that the few things that we wanted to do, one was to figure out who the businesses were. I had already talked to the city manager about the support mechanism. I think others have mentioned in terms of getting a handle, getting an association together. So I spoke with the gentleman from Belding who fortunately, I inherited a list. So I was proud to share that list with him that he could build upon. And then we decided that, we couldn't make these decisions without information, right? It was just anecdotal as it relates to the Food from the Holidays program. So we did put together a digital survey. We had a list of 86 businesses and we had a 37% response rate. Collectively, our group devised the questions. And it was very informative in terms of the types of needs that the businesses have. We wanted to do this because we wanted to be comprehensive, not just businesses in Tifa and DDA, but in the entire Grosse Pointe Park, and also to maybe look beyond just restaurants, because a lot has been focused on restaurants. So 90% of the businesses said that they had been impacted. It was an 11 question survey. We had a 35% return rate. 70% said they wanted some advertising help, followed by 57% who want direct grants and more foot traffic. There were other ways they talked about that the city could help: waive business license fees, maximize the social districts, provide some infrastructure improvements, and 70% actually said they support street closings for events. So there's other instructive details that came out of this. They need help learning about grants and applying for grants. Again, as I mentioned, beyond the DDA and TIFA, they support ideas such as Charlevoix Week, Restaurant Week, Kirchville Week, and they talked about some best practices in Northfield, Royal Oak, and Detroit. So we'd love to present these findings to DDA and TIFA. We also talked about perhaps looking into identifying some strategic partners such as DTE and foundations, and continue to broaden our group to include more business owners. We ended up calling this was the Sustain GPP initiative. And so we have, as part of that, created a Facebook page that we're, working to drive people to these businesses. And of course, we'll continue to work on the resident component of this to find out what the need is for residents. And then the last thing I wanted to do is acknowledge the people that worked on this. So in addition to me serving as chair, a council member Fluid, Russ, and I'm gonna mess his name up, Russ G from O'Flaherty's, Jeff Greer, Tim Kolar, Mary Rulo, Amy Chesterton, and again, I mentioned Joe from Belding. And then I actually am going to give another nod because the business list I got was from Jamie Turnbull. So thank you for allowing me to update on that. And I'd love to hear thoughts or, and also City Manager Sizen, I definitely am not trying to step on any toes here. I've been very transparent from the beginning that this is something I wanted to do. And so we have a pretty good bunch that's hardworking, and so this is what we did. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to Member McConnell for representing us so well and her great work. And that's a nice segue into the one thing that I wanted to mention, which was to wish everybody a happy Black History Month. In my work, I get to encounter many interesting people. And today, or recently, I should say, as I've been researching some endeavors related to the Mack Avenue effort I've already reported to you on, I learned that the Joe Von Battle family lived nearby. If you know the Battle family, you know that he was a renowned record store owner, producer, and influential in the careers of Aretha Franklin as well as John Lee Hooker. And probably most special to me, he's the father of Marsha Battle Philpott, who many of you may know as Marsha Music. So we often talk about how we need to leverage our musical history better. And I think many of my Grosse Pointe Park residents would agree with that. And that's one example of how we could. And that, again, bringing it back to Grosse Pointe Park reminds me of our Eastside Jam Collective Facebook page, which is adminned by other Grosse Pointe Park residents that I think we all know and love. So I would encourage you all to become part of that, and also to celebrate Black History Month in your own special way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fluid.
I just wanted to back up a little bit and thank Councilmember McConnell for her initiative. I think she should be commended for putting that together. She's worked very hard on it. She really hit the ground running. She collects information and then she doesn't sit on it. She immediately does something with it and then moves on to the next thing. And I think the residents and the business owners are very appreciative as well. So I just wanted to recognize her for the hard work she's done, particularly as a brand new council member, deciding to take that initiative and address this issue, I think is much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to talk about civil community discourse. I think it's time for me to speak out. As senior council member, I've been on the council for 28 years. And I've been reflecting quite a bit. Over the last several months, there's been a lot of negative community discourse. And it's disheartening, I think, for the entire community. I'm asking everybody to reflect. We have a great city. I think all the negativity that you see on social media, print media, emails, they have a very negative impact. It's not good for the city. People want to move into our city or think about moving into our city. They hear about all of this disagreement. And I reflect upon really my fellow council members. You viewers can see all 6 of my colleagues. And what you don't know is that all of them are very dedicated, have the city at heart, have an incredible work ethic. I can vouch that every single one of them puts many, many, many hours into serving the citizens. So I'm seeing negative comments from all ideologies, all stripes. And I'm asking the community, let's just step back and reflect. We all love our city. We want to do what's best. My colleagues certainly do. And I couldn't be more prouder of them and all the input that they have, but they're the ones that have to get all the, or most of the blowback. Let's please, if it's possible, all of us reflect, regenerate, and try to work together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else before I have a closing comment? Councilmember Reed?
Yeah, and I'll be very brief, but Councilmember Robson, thank you. That is much needed. And I think we're getting it in meetings and on social media. And this week at a Recreation Commission meeting, one of the a young adult resident actually spoke up and said, we're all neighbors. We're coming up on a year of COVID. It's taking a toll on all of us. None of us want to meet like this. We'd much rather meet in person. And I think we need to have grace with each other. And I call on the neighbors of Grosse Pointe Park to have the same attitude. And that goes for social media posts as well as public comment during council meetings. So thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem Robson. I appreciate that.
Okay, Councilmember Rowland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Pro Tem Robson, thank you as well to the rest of the council members. We have been in touch the last couple of weeks. I think we're all on the same page to say 2020 is behind us. Let's turn the page and be a little more cordial. I myself have crossed the line. I'll admit that with some passion about things that I felt were going wrong. But I'm making a promise as well. I had a great conversation with Nick over the weekend. I've been talking with the mayor. That's the way that I'm going to push forward in solving my issues that I think are very important and that I think the community should know about. So I, for one, will follow Mr. Robson's comments there to be more friendly. I always mention, as I talk to other council members, resident Rowland and resident Denner are really good friends. We can drink beer together. We may not see eye to eye as Councilmember Rowland and Mayor Denner, but we can all get past that. So I want to applaud all of us to do that. We need to do what's best for the city, and I, for one, will put my efforts forward on doing that as well. I have a couple other comments. I've been speaking with Lieutenant Bostic and City Manager Nick Seisland about some safety issues coming up. The schools are going to be opening up March 1st, potentially. I know there's a school board meeting tonight, and I'll get an update later, but the schools are going to be opening up full-time, full face-to-face, every kid in school. It is still crazy around Defer and Pierce and behind Pierce. So please don't be in a hurry. Let your kids know that maybe you can pick them up 5 minutes later or to walk a little bit further away from the school. You don't have to pick them up right at that light. We're working together to try to find some good common ground to alert people, but be on the lookout of kids, number one. They're all coming back. This is a new school and they've never been in school with this many kids all at once for over 12 months now. So I'd appreciate that. And I know all the parents that have reached out would do the same thing. As I mentioned, I had a great talk with Nick on Saturday. I think we had planned to talk for 15 minutes and we talked for an hour and a half. And it was something we both appreciated and will continue doing. So as I mentioned, I will be putting my best foot forward to have that cordial relationship. I want to give my heartfelt thanks to public safety. January was a real crappy month for my dad and my family. He suffered a couple strokes. We had an ambulance come in. The public safety showed up at our house within 60 seconds from me calling them with an ambulance with 4 dedicated safety officers, calming my mom down, talking to me, letting me know what's going to happen, giving me advice. I can't say thank you enough. It was very emotional. We went through some other things there, but to know that we have that high level of public safety and that snap, they're there in a minute. So when you need and when there is an emergency, please call public safety and know that they're going to be there very fast. They are the best decision to make in the case of any emergency. One last thing, it is Black History Month. We do have a diversity and initiative meeting number 2 coming up on February 23rd. That's a Tuesday at 6 p.m. Our first meeting, we had about 40 people and about 12 to 15 people spoke. We had some really good discussions. I want to let everyone know, as always, you can reach out to myself or anyone on council. Councilmember Reed and Councilmember McConnell are now part of that initiative as well. And I will be sending out an update with their help in the coming days, alerting everyone to that meeting. But I look forward to that, and hopefully we can work on ways to push the education around, not just Black History Month being a month, but always all year round, as well as other areas of diversity that we have. And we always mention that it's not just color or gender or sexual orientation, it's age, it's physical ability, it's mental ability. So we're going full gamut on this, and I really appreciate everyone's support on this. So thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I've got 3 quick things that are related to things that we've already discussed. One, I'd also like to thank Darcy for all the effort she put into that initiative. I think that it's going to pay dividends for our businesses, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the work that you've done to coordinate that effort with existing city structures and possibly a chamber and the businesses itself as they form their own association. So I truly appreciate that. The second is I also appreciate the spirit of the council that I just heard about our work together in 2021. I'm optimistic that we're going to have a terrific 2021 as a city and as a council, in spite of working through the pandemic. It's been difficult on everybody in many ways, but I think that the spirit and the dedication of this council, and for that matter, all the volunteers that we have on boards and commissions around the city, are going to serve this city very, very well in 2021. So thanks. And then finally, you've been reminded a couple or 3 times already, but tomorrow night is a meeting of the Planning Commission where the topic really is the master plan visioning session to gain public feedback. So it's very important that we get as much participation from our residents as possible to provide their ideas and feedback for the team led by our consultants, MKSK, working with us on our master plan. So thanks very much. That's all I've got. And I'd like to move on to public comment, non-agenda items. I'll turn it over to Nick and to Leah to manage that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Denner. So I do have one written public comment. This is a continuation of Mr. Greg Donnelly's comment. Why is the lease for the new DPW building not on today's agenda? The mayor, city manager, and city attorney presented in December as being urgent to move forward on. Why is it not now urgent enough to have the concerns raised 2 months ago addressed and be on this month's agenda? When will the city council be holding specific votes regarding the closure and vacation of several streets and alleys before the DPW project in the Art Center are undertaken? These votes are required by city council per section 7.6 of the city charter. You are aware that you are violating the charter by not holding these votes. That's all I have for written public comment. Leah, can you start us off with the public queue?
Yes, City Manager Seisland, I can. So the first thing we're going to do is share my screen. And the first person in my queue is actually Mr. Rebecca. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please, and state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. My name is Joe Rebecca, and my residence is Shelby Township. Is that all right if I start?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'd like to say, first of all, I'd like to thank Council Member McConnell for her help with with reaching out to the businesses. Actually, in the last month, I've kind of made a decision between myself and a couple other business owners that we'd be relaunching our business association. As far as this week, we've already secured a website. We've secured a
Mr. Rebecca.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, all right. I don't know where I left off.
You've got a website.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor Denner. We've secured a website, we've secured social media accounts, and reached out to a local designer that would help us design this website with the same type of tradition and feel, we like in the park. We're going to include this time, and I refer to 10 years ago when I restarted the association the first time, and it kind of fizzled out and lost interest within the first 3 or 4 years. And we were only inclusive of Kercheval Avenue. So this time around, we're going to do Jefferson, Kercheval, Charlevoix, Mac. I think it would be a great way to communicate. I know it was mentioned earlier in this meeting between council and city needs and all the business owners. So I just would like to make everyone aware that we were doing that, and appreciate all the support we've already received from the city. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Next comment.
Anna, you're next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please. And please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Anna Signorino, Grosse Pointe Park. I find it wonderful that our city council is looking to great detail about the residents' properties in Grosse Pointe Park to make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing for all residents. You asked great questions about what does the fence look like on Jefferson, which she needs because the dogs are urinating on her shrubs and bushes, and she cannot grow shrubs. So it's great that we are taking that into consideration, that she does need a fence and that it is aesthetically pleasing and non-invasive for drivers or joggers. The noise level for the generator on Audubon, great questions to ask. Are they noisy? Will it bother any residents? The third resident, you asked about how much space or footprint would be taken up by that addition on their beautiful home. What I find shocking is that City Council passed a dog park proposal without any detailed plan. The fence material that was dropped off by backers is the ugliest thing I have ever seen. And I would be horrified to see that in my yard or my neighbor's yard or my neighbor's yard over there on Weyburn and Mac. It is so awful. And you're taking up more than 1/2 acre of our gorgeous, pristine parkland for the dogs to urinate all over. And you're not taking into consideration the safety of all residents and children. I went down to the dog park in Grosse Pointe Farms, and their park is gorgeous, really quite beautiful. But the dogs were off leash going in and out of the dog park. So that's a safety concern. And if you put a dog park inside Patterson Park, there will be safety issues, and children and adults will be put at risk by having dogs inside Patterson Park for a dog park. So I commend you all for saying, hey, let's keep Grosse Pointe Park looking beautiful. I encourage you to reassess the dog park design proposal and the cost from backers. Put that on pause. Do not go forward with a dog park inside Patterson Park, and really get a detailed design plan and the safety measures put into place to keep the park looking just as beautiful as what our neighbors' residents look like. And I encourage you to put that dog park into the master plan, where we have a full description of what the cost actually will be to taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment.
Okay, Mr. Tate, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Joe Tate, Detroit. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity just to speak today. I'm the state representative in House District 2, so I cover the Lower East Side of Detroit, Grosse Pointe Park, this Grosse Pointe City, and Grosse Pointe Farms. Just wanted to bring you briefly up to speed, just where we're at in terms of the legislature. We started the legislative session last month, the 101st legislature. The closest alligator to the boat for us right now is the executive recommendation by the governor that will be taking place this Thursday. And that's one of the components that kicks off the budget process for the state of Michigan. Happy to offer any brief that either council members or city manager Seislin would like to have as we go through the process. And want to thank you for all of the work that you all are doing. And if I can be helpful or supportive, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Representative Tate, I didn't know that you were going to join us tonight. I would, anytime that you want to join our council meeting, please let us know. We would be happy to give you an item on the agenda so that we can expand our discussion. Joe, it's been great to work with you and get to know you since you were elected, and I truly appreciate you attending tonight.
Leah, next public comment.
Brian, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Brian Vosberg, a resident of Grosse Pointe Park. I just want to commend Finance Director Blake Hutt's staff. So I recently refinanced my home and ran into a situation where the mortgage company had paid the taxes, but due to delays in the mail, the city clerk hadn't, the city finance director had not received the payment from the mortgage company for the taxes, and it was potentially going to cause a multi-week delay on my refinancing. But due to the staff talking with the mortgage company and actually kind of checking the mail on a very deliberate basis, they were able to help me close my refinancing. So I really appreciate that, helping me avoid that. Also wanted to just say I'm really looking forward to the master plan process that starts tomorrow. So it's been a long time in the making on this. So I appreciate all the work that council has done and the planning commission have done to get to this point. And I look forward to a really great year of talking about the issues that we've all been talking about for a long time and coming to solutions for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah, next comment.
Jeff, you are next. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Can you please try again? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next person, and then I will try you again after the next speaker talks. So Joe, if you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself, please. And please state your full name and state of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Joe Gleason, Grosse Pointe Park. First of all, Council Robinson, Reed, and Vickus, thank you so much for the positive approach to communication. It's generally refreshing to hear and much needed. We do have a wonderful community. And, you know, Bob, on that note, we have a difficult subject to talk about. As you know, I've been opposed to a dog park in Patterson, not just for the risk that it's putting to the children. And it's a park that was designed for Americans with disability and kids with special needs. And I have good friends that are part of that, but the process wasn't followed. So I'm simply, again, Bob, one question to you, and I'll drop the subject. Can you assure residents that we're not putting children at risk by putting a dog park inside of Patterson? Anyone on this call want to say there's no risk to the children and the elderly, like my mom that I take there for a walk? Most people do not put a dog park inside a community park where kids with special needs and aging people go to. I'll stop, Bob, because I know you wanted to say something.
That concludes your comment. We can move on. I appreciate the comment. This is for us to hear you. If you have specific questions for the administration or for members of council, please send us.
Question was, can we make people safe?
Please send us an email.
I did, and it's not getting answered. It's a question about following the protocol. We didn't receive proper notice of this at all. It was 24-hour notice before a donor said that they were going to rush through a donation if it was selected in Patterson, and we opposed it, but it went through anyways. My question is there anyone on this call or on council that can say we're not putting the children and the elderly at risk by putting this inside of Patterson? Anyone? I'm asking to pause the dog park until it's part of reconsideration with public opinion and master plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Leah, can we try Jeff again, please?
Yes, so if you can try speaking again for me.
Yeah, this should be working.
Yes, it's working now. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Greer. I live on Westchester and Grosse Pointe Park, and I just wanted to compliment the administration on the communications work they've been doing to get people notified about the master plan and the meeting that's tomorrow evening. Several of my neighbors have mentioned it. They plan on participating, and I'm seeing a level of enthusiasm in the community for this process. And I think it'll be a real good exercise for us all to go through together. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah, next comment.
Ron, you are next. Please restate your name and your city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Ron Porter in Grosse Pointe Park. And although I disagree with the two callers who've spoken about the dog park and the location in Patterson Park, I would like to point out to the council, if it's not obvious, that those comments reveal one of the things that is not going well in our city, and that is that we have no plan that we follow, and that the what gets done and what doesn't get done is done at the behest of large donors. We were told for years that there would never be a dog park at Patterson Park, that it was a passive park, and it was just impossible. It was a terrible site. It would be awful. Parking would be terrible. You know, that goes back, what, 10 years. And then all of a sudden, somebody comes up with money and says, I'll give you the money, I'll give you the dog park, but it has to be where I want it to be. And the city says, fine. All of a sudden, it's fine to be at Patterson Park. So that really, and the result is you have a lot of citizens who are taxpayers who feel like they are completely shut out of the process because all they do is pay their taxes. They don't write big checks, so they don't get to make the decisions on things like where a dog park is going to be. So I would just urge the council, and particularly some of the senior members on the council, to reflect on the fact that there are a lot of people unhappy about decisions like the dog park, because it shows that citizens don't really have much input into Grosse Pointe Park. It's the people with the dollars. The people with the dollars decide what happens here. And that's just not right. And so I would urge the council in all this movement to congeniality and teamwork to reflect on the fact that the team is the citizens. You're not teaming with dollars. You're not teaming with the few billionaires we have in this community. Your team should be the citizens of Grosse Pointe Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment.
Mike, you are next. I see that you are already unmuted, so please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm not very good with this. Anyway, Mike, neighbor, Grosse Pointe Park. I'm getting into these meetings lately, and I am no expert on how they're run. I just, so if I sound stupid, that's just the way it is. The point is that I'm hearing tonight a lot of questions about notifications of residents, short notice. I personally don't, and maybe I just don't know where to look, but I personally don't have any idea of what's coming when. And changing things in the city, whether it's dog parks, anything about the parks or the so-called master plans tomorrow night. I don't even know what that means. So what I'm trying to say is that I think there are a lot of people in Grosse Pointe Park that just don't have access, or somehow it has to hit them in the face, and I have not been hit in the face yet with what's going on when. So please let me know, and everybody else who might be listening, what am I doing wrong and how do I get more involved? That's all.
Thank you. Leah, public comment?
City Manager Seisman and Mayor Denner, I have no further public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Leah. That closes public comment on agenda items. That closes the formal business or meeting tonight. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support. I'd make the motion, brother.
Okay, we have a motion, we have support. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Rayland,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
McConnell,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Robson,
Yes.
Fluid,
Yes.
and Mayor Denner.
Yes, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, council. Thank you for everyone that participated, and thank you for getting us out at a fairly rational hour this evening. I didn't even have to call a recess. So
I predicted 9:30, so I wasn't too far off.
okay. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks.
Everybody.